guidebooks for Nintendo. These are the consumer guide books, which was a small series of little books that contain tips for various games on Nintendo. I think there was only maybe there was 4 that were similar like this. I think I have 3 of them. But these were books I had when I was younger that I would read all the time. Just looking for various tips on different Nintendo games. When Nintendo first came out, the original Nintendo, there was actually a lot of different media that came out on guidebooks trying to show people how to win Nintendo games. I think even while they had Nintendo Power at the time, so everybody was trying to capitalize on being able to offer the latest tips for the new games. When you play Nintendo, you may enjoy the fantasy, admire the graphics, or get into the music and sound effects, but most of all, you want to win. This publication is loaded with winning tips for 18 of the hottest game packs, as well as the information you need to heat up your gameplay for 5 of the most exciting games for Game Boy, the NES system you hold in the palm of your hand. They had a lot of different tips for these games. It was broken down into a nice section, which, honestly, I preferred this layout to the Nintendo Power in a lot of ways because, well, Nintendo Power was a good magazine. They had various maps and they would go over different aspects of the game. I found that some of the best tips or the best information was always restricted to their classified information section, which was always a very small portion of each Nintendo Power magazine. And it would only ever have 1 or 2 tips, and usually wouldn't at all be related to the games that were mentioned on the cover of the magazine. It would be unrelated games, which was a little annoying because you'd get like Nintendo Power for Super Mario World, and classified information wouldn't really be about that particular game, at least as I remember. I could be wrong, but with this at least, it would go about a lot of interesting tips. So, of course, you would have the basic stuff where it would just say the basics about the game and how it would work. But it wouldn't waste a lot of time before it would get to like the actual interesting tips. To find the warp zone, you need to blow the magic whistle. The first whistle is in World 1-3. Look for 3 large white blocks that stair step from left to right. Now, why they couldn't have put a picture of this in there, I don't know, but press and hold the down arrow and you'll descend behind the block. So it really explained just how to, without a lot of other stuff, just how to go and get the warp whistle. But it was a special tip as opposed to a hot tip. A hot tip: when you're fiery Mario, grab a fire flower to earn the power to knock out the plants. Of course, I think because this was an unauthorized Nintendo game, they had to make their own sort of copies of the different things. So like they draw a little mushroom that wasn't really a Nintendo mushroom. It's just, if you happen to find this mushroom, but there were a lot of situations that would make the white mushroom houses appear, but they don't go over every single one, I don't think. They just kind of cover the one that's here, as opposed to the ones that could come up elsewhere. Looks like I actually skipped a page here. Talk about just different tips of basically getting started. The secret coin boat. The secret coin boat has no less than 168 free gold coins, worth about 1.5 one-ups. Grab as many as you can before the ship moves off the screen. To make the coin boat appear on the map in front of the Koopa Kid's ship, you need to have completed at least one round. And you'll have to exit that round with coins that are equal to 11 times the round's number. In other words, exit round 3 with 33 coins, or round 5 with 55. Maybe I should spend more time trying this out. Like, I guess you could only do the coin boat once per world, I guess. So multiple times. I'll give you various tips about the last 3 cards on the bottom row, and every pattern are the same mushroom, flower, and star. So, anyways, we'll just skip along a little further here, because I got a lot to get through. But you'd have some of the newer games that would have come out at the time. Batman, always a classic. The music in the NES games were actually some of the best. Even to this day, actually, I still prefer some of the music from those games over the music in the newer ones. I mean, nowadays, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most people could probably hum the original Super Mario Brothers theme, or different tunes or music from Super Mario Brothers 3 or Batman, or they have all these recognizable audio tracks. With the newer games like Mario Wonder or Mario Odyssey, I don't think I could. Okay, maybe there's one from Mario Odyssey that I could recognize, but the majority of them, to me, just didn't stand out as being overly memorable. Like, I could actually remember every theme for all of the overworld music in all of the Super Mario Brothers 3 worlds, from the first one and on. They were all just memorable. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, arguably one of the more difficult games on the NES. So you would have all of these nice tips on these various games, dealing with some of the things like the underwater bomb level. I don't know, everybody hated that level. I thought it was really hard. I mean, it is until you figure out like where the bombs are and you get the pattern down. Once you know that, it's actually not that hard. There's only a couple of key spots where it gets a little tricky, where you're like navigating through the seaweed, but beyond that, it's not as bad. There are levels that are a lot harder than that. This is the one I'm talking about. Like, there's actually another part like this that gets pretty bad. Actually, the end part here isn't really that bad. There's one where it's like an S that you've got to go through, where there's this seaweed that zaps you. That can be a little bit hard when you have very little life left. A boy and his blob, which I never really played as a kid. Top Gun. Super C. Game takes up where Contra left off. Yeah, I think everybody played Contra. Adventure. sometimes the developers would talk about some of the things that they did, or just different aspects of the game. But a lot of the information in Nintendo Power wasn't always like a walkthrough. It's interesting how a lot of different games copied similar ideas, even back then. And almost the same type of sprites, like the life and the power is almost like a direct ripoff from Zelda 2. And for some reason, like with the blocks, like this just reminds me of Karnov, which was a game, I don't know, it was this Russian guy that would go around and he'd shoot these red balls, and it was actually kind of neat because you collect different items that you could use. Like there was like a ladder and these like wing boots and stuff like that. A lesser known game that I had forgotten about, that I played a lot when I was a kid and forgot about for many years, and then stumbled across it just by happenstance one day, and I was like, why do I recognize this game? It was like core memory unlocked. It was crazy. DuckTales. Another classic. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Yeah. I don't know, I think it's pretty polarizing. People either liked it or didn't like it, but I happen to like the game a lot, although I did find some things about it were pretty stupid. Like the punching system where you had to like build up your punch strength was just beyond stupid. Which is why I would always play this with the Game Genie, which I just so happen to have right here. Little cameo by the Game Genie. And one of the codes that you could do with the Game Genie would give you it would be instant full strength every time you would hit. Oh man, it made such a huge difference when you were like actually trying to do any sort of combat, that you could just do full power without having to like build it up, because it was so beyond excessive to try to build it up. You'd be like mashing the button, the guy's like hopping around, and it's like when you build it up, and then you'd punch and it's just whiff and you hit nothing but air, and you'd be like, ah. So and then I wonder if it mentions, like, I happen to remember that like a password for this was like, it was always like DLO, and there was like a whole bunch of zeros and then a bunch of other stuff. But if you at least started with DL0 and like went with mostly zeros, it would always bring you to like the last boss. It was like a password that was like etched in my brain, and it's like I couldn't remember the whole thing. It was just I would remember the first little part of it, and then I'd randomize some of the characters, and it's like I'd always end up at the last boss with like completely random stuff in my inventory. It's like I'd show up there and I'd have like nothing, or I'd have like an exploding cigar, like 20 exploding cigars or something like that, and be like, oh yeah, this is helpful. But well, and then at the very end we have a little blurb on the Game Boy. This was a really reduced section for sure. You can see that the font that they even used is bigger than they had elsewhere, just to fill up the pages. I mean, I think the Game Boy was still relatively new at this time, so they were just trying to capitalize on, we have some information. But this Super Mario Land, there you go. Which, I remember getting that game as one of the first games that I had with the Game Boy, and being kind of disappointed by it, that it just didn't feel like any of the existing Marios that we'd already played. I found that what was it, 6 golden coins? The sequel was done way better. It actually felt more like an actual Mario game. So I don't know which order these go in. absolute death. And it was not easy. The controls were very clunky because even jumping, you had to like push both the buttons, and if you wanted to do like a run jump, it was more complicated, and it was just so janky. I think I eventually did finish the game once, because I do remember reaching the ending. I don't know if I used the Game Genie for it or not. I might have, to give me like infinite lives, and then I think I actually finally did beat the game. But before then, I'd always get pretty far in. But I think it was always the like dealing with the dinosaur part. I think was always the part that got me. Because by that point, you get to that point, you have like one life left, and it's like a lot of things in this game would require that you just have to know how it works, and you'd have to like sacrifice lives to figure out, oh, this is how I handle this situation. Then you have to play the whole thing to get back to that point to know what you have to do. But that's kind of what they did back in the day. You can see that the pictures that they had in this one, like, they just seem a little less quality. Like, they were definitely taking like pictures of the TV. The other one, it actually, like, the images looked a little better. Or maybe they were, but at least it looked a little clearer, even on the larger size. But this one just looks like really blurry. The Little Mermaid. Yeah, I feel like because I think they had a lot less for this one specifically, which is probably why it was cheaper than the other two, and they were really padding it out with using much larger images and fonts. Adventure Island 2. Choose an egg. I honestly never played this game. I played the first one a lot. I never beat it. Got pretty far into it. I don't know how far, but I remember going through the end boss sequence so many times. I lost count, but I never played the second one. Although, I think there was like 3 different ones that actually came out. Worth checking out at some point, I suppose. Little Nemo, the Dream Master. Games I haven't really heard of. Like, I don't remember any of these. Look, they have another section here, Super Mario Land. They had that in the other one. I wonder. I mean, this must have been like the later one that came out, because I mean, I don't know. Maybe this one was the first one, the second one, third one, I don't know. Seems weird that they would repeat it from the other one. $10. My God. This one's actually a pretty good size too. And this one, yeah. Wait a minute. How much of these are the same? You got Super Mario Brothers 3, Batman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, A Boy and His Blob. It's basically the same. Adventures of Lolo 2, which wasn't that in this one? Double Dragon's Out in Service. I don't know. Bit of overlap for sure. And even actually using some of the graphics that they had used in this one. Exactly whatsoever. Super C, low. No. Wow. That's crazy. It's exactly the same. Why does it have two different covers? This doesn't make any sense. I was thinking maybe the Game Boy thing, but it's like, it's exactly the same. 1990. 1990. Different ISBN numbers. Wow. Okay, so is this like exactly the same? Oh my god, it's exactly the same. I thought these were different. They just have different covers. Wow. Well, that sucks. I feel ripped off. Interestingly enough, the colors are different though. Like, I don't know if you can see this. This is more of like a brownish red versus like an actual red. So the colors are kind of different in places, but it's basically exactly the same. Just a different cover. Well, I guess we don't need to go through it then. I don't even know which one is which. It's that similar. I know there's another one, but the question now is it going to be the same? Like, they would just assume they're never going to know we'll use a different cover. They'll buy it, and then they won't be able to return it. Masterminds. Criminal masterminds. Well, we kind of went through this already, so yeah, exactly the same. Yeah, very much the same, except just a different color. Wow. Well, learn something new every day. Wow, look, the only difference, look, wait, here's the difference, look at this, $4.95 US, $5.95 Canadian, $4.95 US, $6.50 Canadian. So if we really want to find out which one was first, we could try and look at how the exchange rates were different. I'm willing to bet this one came out later. That's my guess. But anyways, there you have it. 3 of these consumer guide, where 2 of them are pretty much exactly the same. With different tips.